Hey everybody, I'm Bill Keller. I'm a Platinum Executive with Thrive Life. And in this video I want to talk about the changing markets and how it has affected Thrive and what they are doing about that and how it affects us. You know, the markets are constantly changing. The supply and demand, the demand constantly changes as we go through different phases in society. Some things are fads, some things stick around forever. So companies, in order to survive in the changing markets, they have to adapt and change with it. And that is exactly what Thrive has done. Let me give you just a little bit of history if you're not aware of this. Thrive first started, they were called Shelf Reliance. And their very first product was the food rotation storage racks. And they didn't have any food, anything like that. The idea was that if you were going to be a prepper and you were buying canned goods from the grocery store, you had to rotate them because they only have a shelf life of a few years. So they designed the rotation racks to help you be able to rotate your food storage. And then along those lines, thinking about, the emergency preparedness industry, they introduced a whole line of emergency supplies, things like a variety of different solar powered lights and things like that, water storage, treatment products, a variety of different emergency preparedness supplies. And then somewhere along the line they introduced the food. And when they first introduced it, they only had a couple of products, and they called it Thrive Life Freeze-Dried Food by Shelf Reliance. Well, the preparedness industry absolutely exploded during the Obama administration. Not that I'm trying to get into politics or anything like that here, I'm just talking about what happened in the market and in the industry. Preparedness industry exploded. There were it basically created a whole new industry. Before that, you never heard of prepping. It was a very, very minor niche market of basically wackos, I mean, you just didn't ever hear about it. And then once it became a fad, if you will, and then it started to become mainstream, and suddenly there's a TV show, Doomsday Preppers, and suddenly prepping was everywhere, and the industry just exploded, and there were whole new companies that were born during this time, emergency preparedness companies that had a variety of different kinds of emergency supplies. And that went on for quite a while. But Thrive realized sometime during this process that even though the emergency prepper industry was growing, that it was a niche market. And so Thrive looked at a larger market than just the niche market. They were looking at the grocery market because it's hugely larger than prepping. So they changed their name. They adopted Thrive Life instead of just a product line. That became their new company name. So they changed from Shelf Reliance to Thrive Life. And they dropped all of their other emergency supplies that they used to have. They don't carry anything like that. They have completely changed their marketing now to be marketed toward daily use for the food rather than to prepping. And so along those lines they have introduced new products like Simple Plate meals, which were a direct competition to HelloFresh and those other meal delivery services. And that's emphasizing daily use. And then they've just introduced the to-go meals for lunches, for single serving. And ever since Trump was elected, once again, I'm not trying to get political here, I'm just talking what's happening with the market. Ever since Trump was elected, the emergency preparedness industry is dying. The three largest emergency preparedness supplies companies have all gone out of business. Now, I don't know what those companies were. Jason Norton, president, was telling me this, and he didn't tell me the companies. But the three largest companies are now out of business, and many of the other companies are struggling for survival. Now, Thrive, because they changed their marketing emphasis, we've had a bit of a dip in sales, but we're still going strong, and we're just adapting to the new market changes and going on. When Thrive realized that emergency preparedness or prepping was a niche market, and they repositioned themselves for daily use, they were actually positioning themselves to become a leader in one of the largest industries in the world, and that is groceries. I've heard the statistics before. Unfortunately, I didn't write them down. I don't know what they are, but you know, the grocery industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Obviously, it's the only thing in the world that I know of that every single person must have. Not every single person wants. Every single person must have. So it's a huge industry. Now let me talk for just a second about the freeze-dried industry. You know, food technology and storage technology sometimes can take a long time to be accepted. Canning, for instance, was introduced sometime in the early 1800s, and it wasn't until the late 1800s that it became something that people started to accept and use on a regular basis. Before that, people were scared of it. People were suspicious and didn't believe that it was going to really store food properly. But eventually it was adapted, and now you have a whole grocery store full of cans. Freezing was introduced in the very early 1900s. In the same way, it took a long time for people to accept it. Now we have a whole freezer section in the grocery store. Nobody thinks twice about it. Freeze drying has actually been around for a long time, but it was seen kind of as astronaut food. You know, it was a niche thing that everybody knew was there, but nobody took seriously. Mountain House has been making freeze-dried food for backpackers for decades. I can remember using Mountain House backpacking food, because I was a backpacker, when I was 12 years old. That's a long time ago. But it's been a very small niche, and it just hasn't gone anywhere until recently. It's starting to go mainstream. You're starting to see more and more freeze-dried foods all the time in the grocery store. And Thrive believes, and so do I, that freeze-dried food is about to explode into being the major new food storage technology, and it'll be in every home. And Thrive has now positioned themselves to be the leader in the freeze-dried market. They have the best freeze-drying technologies and capabilities in the country right now with a brand new facility that they have. And so as they position themselves to be the leader in the freeze-dried industry, they're going to be a leader in the grocery industry. That's just absolutely amazing. So looking at statistics now, since they've repositioned themselves for daily use instead of prepping, looking at statistics of Thrive Life users, only 15% are preppers, just preppers. 70% are both preppers and daily use, and 15% are daily use. So, and I think that most of the people that use it for daily use and prepping, I think that most of them probably were not preppers who discovered that Thrive is also good for daily use. I think it's the other way around. I think that most of them were introduced to Thrive as daily use, and then they realized this is also good to store for emergencies. I don't have any emergency supplies. This is a good way to store. So I think that fully 85% now of Thrive users are, are using it for daily use. That's where the gold is. That's where the money is. And that's what we want to emphasize, is the daily use. Because if you sell to preppers and you turn them on to how good the food is, and they stock up their emergency supplies, they're going to buy several $1,000s worth of food from you. But then once they get their food storage to the point where they think it's adequate, they're going to stop buying from you. I've had a number of customers who have placed $3,000 orders, and many of them have done that numerous times, 2 or 3 or 4, $3,000 orders, and then they disappear, and I never see them again because they're not using it for daily use; they're just storing it. Now, if you're selling it to people for daily use, they're probably not going to buy those huge orders, but they're going to buy $100 or $200 or $300 every single month. And if they're truly using it for daily use, theoretically you have them as a customer for life, because what they're doing is just reallocating some of their grocery store money and spending it at your Thrive grocery store instead. And they're going to continue to do that forever. So, in our marketing, in your marketing, if you happen to be involved with a group that you know is into prepping, then by all means talk about prepping. But for me, I have completely dropped the whole prepping thing in my marketing as well. Now I still hear a lot of comments and questions in my YouTube channel about prepping, probably because of our name, Tiny House Prepper. People just assume that that's what I'm talking about when I introduce Thrive. But if you look at my Cooking with Thrive videos, you'll see that in my early ones, I would show how to cook something at the end. I would give this spiel about, now just imagine when everybody else is fighting in the streets over a can of Spam, you're going to be able to eat this wonderful full gourmet meal because of all the Thrive food that you have in your storage. So I was pushing prepping. I don't ever mention prepping at all in my cooking anymore. Instead, now I talk about the convenience of it because it's all pre-cooked and pre-chopped and all that. How fast you can cook, those sorts of things, the benefits of daily use. I never talk about prepping anymore. So, like I said, if you're involved in a group or you're talking to people that you know are into prepping, by all means talk about prepping. But for the most part, what you want to be emphasizing is the daily use. See, here's the thing. If you're talking to somebody who's into prepping, all you have to say is 25-year shelf life, and they get it. You don't have to explain it to them. But if you're talking to someone who is not into prepping at all, then you could talk for 20 minutes about the importance of prepping and they still won't get it. So emphasize daily use. That's where the money's at. That's where now most of our customers are daily use. 85% of our customers are now daily use customers. So I don't know, for what that's worth, I hope it helps you understand a little bit where the company has been and where we are going, and the huge potential of growth that we have as we go more and more into the daily use, and as freeze-dried food is more and more accepted in our culture. If you're using Thrive, then you are what they call an early adapter. You're adapting quickly to new ideas and new trends in the market. Onto that. Hold on to it. Push it in your marketing. And if you can turn people on to daily use, you're going to gain lifetime customers. And there is no other multi-level or direct sales company that I know of that can boast that kind of residual income. And that, to me, is what the Thrive business is all about. It's exciting. So go for it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.